In 1929, thousands of Americans lost everything overnight, but a small group got rich. Not because they were lucky, not because they had inside information, because they recognized something 6 months before it happened. A pattern. The same pattern that appeared before the crash of 2000, before 2008, before every major financial collapse in modern history. And right now, several of those same signals are appearing again. In the next few minutes, you are going to see the exact sequence that shows up before every major crash. You will see what ordinary people were doing while it built around them, what smart people did differently, and why the same mistakes keep destroying new generations of families who never saw it coming. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what to watch for, what to avoid, and what to do right now, regardless of how much money you have. I am your host at the Hidden Wealth Archaeologist. We dig through history so you do not repeat it. Quick pause. Hit subscribe and the bell right now. Every week we excavate a real financial collapse and pull out the lessons that actually matter, completely free. Now let us dig. Here is the first thing you need to understand. Market crashes are not random. They are not accidents. They are not unpredictable events that arrive without warning. They are the predictable conclusion of a specific human sequence that repeats because the one thing that drives it never changes. Human psychology. Here's the sequence. Every single time. First, genuine economic growth creates real prosperity. This part is real. The optimism is justified. People are actually getting wealthier. Second, that real prosperity attracts people who were previously cautious. Investors who sat on the sidelines watching others get rich finally decide to participate. This is the first warning sign. Third, new money pushes prices higher. Higher prices create more optimism. More optimism attracts more money. The cycle accelerates beyond what the underlying economy justifies. This is the second warning sign. Fourth, media coverage explodes. Stories of ordinary people getting rich appear everywhere. Your neighbor made $40,000. Your barber has stock tips. A taxi driver tells you what to buy. This is the third warning sign, historically the most reliable one. Fifth, debt floods the system. People stop buying with savings and start buying with borrowed money. Why save slowly when prices are rising this fast? This is the fourth warning sign, and the one that turns a correction into a catastrophe. Sixth, the last skeptics give in. The people who called it a bubble for 2 years finally surrender and buy, because everyone around them is getting rich, and staying out feels like financial self-harm. The moment the last skeptic becomes a buyer, there is nobody left to buy. And when nobody's left to buy, prices have only one direction available. This sequence appeared in 1929, in 2000, in 2008, every time, without exception. The only difference was the asset class sitting at the center of it. New York City, March 1929. A 26-year-old secretary named Ruth just opened her first brokerage account. She had watched her colleagues get rich for 2 years. She finally gave in. She was not alone. Between 1927 and 1929, the number of ordinary Americans with brokerage accounts doubled. Factory workers, teachers, farmers, people who had never owned a single stock were suddenly buying on margin. Margin means borrowed money. Ruth put in $1 of her own savings and borrowed 9 more from her broker. This felt perfectly rational in March 1929. The market had been rising for 3 straight years. Newspapers were breathlessly optimistic. The most respected economists in America were publicly stating that stocks had reached a permanently high plateau. One prominent Yale professor made that declaration in October 1929, 9 days before Black Tuesday. But while Ruth was opening her margin account in March, a small number of people were quietly doing something completely different. Joseph Kennedy sold everything he owned in the summer of 1929. His reasoning was simple. When his shoeshine boy started giving him stock tips, he recognized the final stage of the sequence. The last skeptics had become buyers. There was nobody left. Bernard Baruch began liquidating positions and holding cash starting in early 1929. He later said he knew it was time when the speculation became universal. These were not geniuses. They were pattern readers. They recognized that when taxi drivers have tips and secretaries are buying on margin and professors are declaring permanent plateaus, the sequence has reached its final stage. Ruth lost everything. Every dollar she had saved over 4 years of work. Gone in 3 weeks. Kennedy made one of the greatest fortunes in American history by buying undervalued assets at depression prices while everyone else was sell. Kennedy made one of the greatest fortunes in American history by buying undervalued assets at depression prices while everyone else was selling in panic. Same market, same information available to both of them. Completely different outcomes. Phoenix, Arizona, 2006. A school teacher named Michael just bought his 3rd investment property. No experience, almost no savings. But his mortgage broker told him he qualified for a loan requiring no proof of income and no down payment. He was not alone. In 2006, 40% of all mortgages in America required no down payment. Banks were lending to people who could not repay, then packaging those loans and selling them to pension funds worldwide as safe investments. Everyone was getting paid to create more risk. Nobody was being paid to question it. Newspapers were euphoric. Real estate always goes up. Get in before prices go even higher. Then one man started reading the actual mortgage documents inside the financial instruments everyone else was buying blindly. Michael Burry. What he found was extraordinary. Loans issued to people with no income, no jobs, no assets. Loans specifically designed to become unpayable after the initial low-rate period expired. He bet against the entire system. His investors tried to pull their money. His colleagues thought he had lost his mind. He made over $700 million when everything collapsed. But here is what matters more than his profit. The warning signs were not hidden. They were in public documents available to anyone willing to look. The pattern was visible. Most people chose not to see it because seeing it meant stopping something that felt very profitable. Here is exactly what pattern readers did, because this is where most crash videos fail you. First, they raised cash before the crash, not after. Before. Cash feels stupid when everything is rising. It feels like leaving money on the table. Kennedy sold into strength. Burry held cash while being mocked. That discomfort is the point. Cash before a crash is not a failed investment. It is a strategic weapon nobody else will have when prices collapse. Second, they cut leverage first. Debt amplifies gains during expansion. It destroys you during contraction. The people who survived 1929 intact were almost universally the ones who reduced margin positions before October. The ones who held leverage into the decline lost everything. Third, they made their shopping list before the crash arrived. Burry did not just predict the collapse. He already knew exactly what to buy and at what price when it arrived. Kennedy had already identified the assets he would acquire at depression prices. Preparation means you can act with confidence during the panic when everyone else is paralyzed. Here is the real question. If the pattern is this consistent and the warning signs this visible, why does it keep destroying new generations of people? 3 reasons. None of them are stupidity. Reason 1. Greed reframes risk as opportunity. When prices are rising, every warning sign gets interpreted as a reason to buy more. The human brain in a bull market finds evidence for whatever it already wants to believe. Reason 2. Social proof overrides individual judgment. When everyone around you is doing something, buying stocks, taking out mortgages, opening margin accounts, the social pressure to participate becomes overwhelming. Going against it feels genuinely dangerous, even when you know better. Reason 3. Recency bias replaces long-term thinking. When markets have risen for 3 years, the human brain struggles to imagine they will stop. The recent past becomes the expected permanent future. This is why the Yale economist declared a permanent plateau 9 days before Black Tuesday. He genuinely believed it, because everything he had recently experienced told him it was true. These 3 mechanisms are as active today as they were in 1929. They will be active during the next crash too. I am not going to tell you a crash is coming tomorrow. Nobody knows that. Anyone claiming certainty about timing is selling something.
But here is what the forensic record shows about current conditions.
Margin debt is near historic highs. Retail investor participation has reached levels not seen since 1999. The year before, the dotcom crash erased $5 trillion of American wealth. Media sentiment around specific asset classes has reached the kind of universality that historically marks late-stage bull market psychology. None of these prove a crash is imminent. The pattern never tells you when. It tells you which stage of the sequence you are watching right now. Here is what the forensic record says to do. 1. Audit your leverage immediately. Write down every dollar of debt you carry. Identify which obligations become dangerous if asset values fall 30 to 50%. Begin reducing the most dangerous ones now while conditions are still favorable. 2. Build a cash position that feels uncomfortable. If your cash position feels sensible, it is probably not large enough. The cash that matters is the cash you build before you need it. 3. Make your shopping list now. Write down what you would want to own at half of current prices and at what specific price you would buy. This preparation means you can act with clarity during the panic when everyone else is frozen. 4. Watch the taxi driver indicator. When people with no financial background are confidently recommending specific investments to you, the final stage has likely arrived. Take it seriously. 5. Read the data, not the narrative. Financial news creates engagement, not good decisions. Watch margin debt levels, retail participation rates, debt to income ratios. The pattern lives in the data, not in the headlines built around it. Here is the final truth. Market crashes do not happen to people. They happen through people, through the predictable responses of millions of individuals, each acting rationally based on what they can see, but collectively creating the very catastrophe they are trying to avoid. Ruth the secretary was not stupid. She was human. The pattern readers were not geniuses. They simply studied enough history to recognize which stage they were watching. And they were willing to act on that recognition before the crowd confirmed it. The pattern has repeated for as long as human beings have traded anything of value. It will repeat again. The only protection is pattern recognition applied early enough to matter. That window, the 6 months before, is always the most important window. And it is always the shortest one. Subscribe to The Hidden Wealth Archaeologist. Every week we dig through a different financial collapse, so you see the pattern before it arrives. Hit the bell so you never miss an excavation. Drop a in the comments with the one action you are taking this week. I read every single one. The pattern is visible right now. The window is open. The only question is whether you will use it. Thanks for watching.